Dustin.
What's up?
How it be?
It be. It was a struggle to get here tonight, but we're making it happen.
I know.
It's been a struggle like consistently for like 2 months.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just, I don't know if it's when routines change, they change big time, and it's just an adjustment all around.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're here. We made it. We made it, everybody.
We're here.
All right. We're having a very special discussion tonight. That's been in the works for months.
Yeah.
This is one of those episodes we actually prepared for somewhat.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of. I only have minuscule notes, but I just there's not much needed. We want to talk about Better Call Saul in this podcast, and really if you got through any of previous recommendations of the show via Dustin, I think it's safe to say we both recommend the series and also Breaking Bad and El Camino. So go watch those, because we're going to probably spoil everything Vince Gilligan has ever touched in this episode. So
right. We
recommend the shows and the film.
Yep.
Now go away. So you saw Better Call Saul as it aired.
Yes.
And so
the final season I did. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like there was an early part where it was on the air where I was watching it as it aired when I still had DirecTV, but that was like one season.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking at the time, like, this is really good.
Yep.
And we'll just see. And then like I lost access to the show until it would get on Netflix. And then I only watched up through the third season. And then by the time that I realized kind of how far behind I was, because you were kind of keeping me appraised, you were like, the show's very good. And it was in like its fifth season at that point. And I was like, okay, I'm behind. And then it was like, once it ended and you did your review of it, you mentioned like, we ought to talk about it once you see it. So I was like, okay. So I was basically waiting for it to drop on Netflix, because at the time that I decided I was going to do it, we pared down our streaming services. And so as soon as we realized it was on Netflix, I knew that in August I was going to be bringing July, I was going to be bringing back Netflix for 2 months. And so with 63 episodes of the show, I knew that, okay, I've got 60 days. So if I average an episode a day, I can watch the whole show. And so that's pretty much what I did. Yeah. And so for the 2 months I had Netflix at the end of the summer, I watched the entire show. I just went ahead and started over because it had been long enough to where I had seen the first 3 seasons that I felt like I should probably just start over. Sure. And I'm glad I did, because there's plenty of stuff that I was picking up on, and knowing the general direction that things went, but there was a whole lot that I had not remembered. And so it was interesting, but wow. What a show.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, my history with it is a little different. Like, obviously, so when it first started, I did not have access to cable at all. So I never watched it live like appointment television, but I did keep up with it week to week by buying each episode on Amazon, because they'd be available like a day or two later. And so I'd watch them that way. And so I did keep up with it, semi live. And then, but the final season I did have access to AMC again. And so I was able to watch them with ads, the way that nature intended, and the way that Ted
Turner intended.
Yes, and live on AMC, and man, I agree. Like, it's a great show, and it's one of those shows that it's very different from its predecessor, but it in very broad ways, it's different, but there's very specific things in which it's very similar. And I think that's interesting.
One of the things that set Breaking Bad apart from other shows was just detail and minutia. Yeah. There was a whole lot of emphasis with shot composition and sound design and everything. But even story-wise in that show, just to sort of take seemingly unimportant things and seed them very early.
Yeah.
or establish some kind of expected order of events so that when something changed, it was very subtle. And it just really rewarded attention to detail. And Better Call Saul has that same sensibility where it's just like, we're going to show it's my favorite like cinematic feast to see characters doing mundane things. Yeah. Because you're conditioned to go, oh shit, is something going to happen because something normal is happening. Yeah. Is there going to be an explosion? Like, you're conditioned as a viewer to expect something to happen in every scene. Right. And so when they're doing normal things, there's tension. Yep. And then maybe nothing happens. And it's like, he pours the coffee, takes a sip, and the next shot's outside. He's going to his car. It's like, oh, okay, he's fine, I guess. He's going to his car. Yep. Is there something wrong with the car? Drives to work. Okay, he made it to work. What's going on?
What's going on? Yeah, right. Yep.
And it's just that's what it does for the casual viewer, and then for everyone else who is desensitized to that is now like, okay, let me just pay attention to what he does, and even if it's amounts to nothing, it's somehow like entrancing and magnetic to watch characters just live pretty comparatively normal lives compared to other shows you may watch where everything is heightened. Yep. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul make their characters and the world just feel extremely realistic and plausible.
Which is great because, I mean, it requires that, I think, in order for you to truly latch on to what's happening here. Mm-hmm. And to not treat it realistically, I think it would be a disservice to the story, right? Because the story in both series is very specific in the story they want to tell, and it has very real repercussions on the people around our characters. And if we ignore that, if we, gloss over any part of it, then suddenly like the credibility is lost in a weird way. And so like the shows are not like procedural, but they kind of are. And what's weird, so I'm in the middle of I'm nearing the end of a Breaking Bad rewatch right now.
Sidebar, I'm watching a YouTube reactor watch the show for the first time.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah. And so she has just finished the 3rd season.
Okay.
And so I'm not rewatching the show, but I'm essentially revisiting the show's major beats.
Yep.
In the way that I enjoy very most. Like if something happens and she'll gasp and she'll say, I'm so tense. And I'm just like, that's right.
That's
right. You are.
Yep. And what's interesting is like, I feel like Breaking Bad is more heightened than Better Call Saul. Yeah. But I kind of love that about Better Call Saul. Like it's very slice of life. It's very mundane. Yeah. It's very like, by the books, in terms of the law, like they're not exaggerating things. At least it doesn't feel like they're exaggerating things for dramatic purposes. It just kind of unfolds, and it unfolds naturally. And you often hear these terms thrown around: character-driven and story-driven stories. And both of these shows and El Camino are character-driven stories. They cannot exist apart from the choices the characters make. Yeah. And there's very little, if anything, that the writers do to push the characters in a specific direction. And in listening to Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould talk over time, I've come to realize that one of their main sensibilities is, especially in terms of these shows, is what would the character do here? Like what's realistic for them to do, and let that pave the way in the writer's room rather than like, all right, what cool stories do you have to tell? Right. Which is how so many shows get broken. It's like you have a big laundry list of all these things you want to do. Yeah. And Breaking Bad wasn't that way. And if you ever listen to them talk about the way they've plotted the stories, I think Vince said there was a point where he had a pretty vague idea of what the finale of Breaking Bad would be. Like, presumably that, spoiler alert, that Walter would die. Yep. But how we get there, he wasn't quite sure. And what the rest of that episode around it would look like, he wasn't quite sure. And so they have like these vague ideas, but they let the characters drive towards those things. Yeah. And those things are not like they don't feel like a writer saying, I want to get to this spot. It's a writer saying, if you decide to cook meth, this is the logical outcome of that.
What's going to happen?
If you have cancer and you're a criminal, the logical outcome is you die.
And your main sin is pride.
Yeah,
like you're always gonna want more.
Right.
You're always going to want to prove more. And so the logical conclusion for Walt was he's going to die. He's either going to, the cancer's either going to kill him or he's going to get himself killed.
Yep.
Or something.
Or both, or some combination of the two. And it's the same with Better Call Saul. There is a driving force, although it's never quite it's not as stated outright as Breaking Bad was. Like, it's not as apparent because it feels more slice of life. Like, he's making very small decisions that are impacting his life, whereas Walt made a very clear choice at the beginning. I'm going to break bad.
Yeah.
It was, this happened to Jimmy over the course of a very long time. Yeah.
And I think that too, like, Breaking Bad telegraphs Walt's fate. I mean, like, from the very first episode, the man has cancer. And so your assumption from the get-go is that he's probably going to die by the end of the series.
Right. He's not going to make it out alive.
It's just, we don't know if it's going to be the cancer, if it's going to be the crime. And so it feels appropriate that he would die.
Yeah.
And it feels logical as well. And sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I got another. And
Better Call Saul does a very similar thing. It telegraphs its ending, but in a different way, right? Because the idea of Better Call Saul is so I again, just in listening to Vince and Peter talk, this was their mantra. The mantra was, what problem in Jimmy's life does becoming Saul Goodman solve?
Yep.
And that's what they had to come up with. And so we know where he ends up, right? We know who Saul is.
Yeah.
So the ending is almost telegraphed by Breaking Bad, but yet, we surpass that ending, right?
Yeah.
The show takes us into sequel territory and draws logically out of two shows where this character's mind would be.
It's clever in that it recontextualizes Breaking Bad as the middle act of Saul's life.
Yeah. What's really interesting in rewatching Breaking Bad is now having spent so much time watching, Gus build the super lab and watching, his relationship with Mike blossom and watching all of the long, like those lengths he's gone to finally get rid of Don Eladio and Hector Salamanca. We got all of that in Breaking Bad, sure. But now having watched two series worth of it, what's weird is going back and watching Breaking Bad, you kind of realize how minuscule Walt is.
Yeah, in this giant machine.
Yeah, but not in a bad way. To me, I've always thought of Walt as like really smart and clever and able. But when you rewatch it now, you start to realize he's actually in over his head for the majority of the series.
He's so far in over his head. Like it just lends weight to what he's getting himself into and how perplexed that a character like Mike, for instance, is at every audacious decision Walt makes. Because from Mike's perspective, it's like, you have no fucking idea.
He's an amateur.
What all of us have been doing for like the last 10 years in Albuquerque, these German engineers in this lab, the fact that there's two people buried under the concrete in this place. Like every time you'll cook meth,
and now we know that like Gus has two houses across the street from each other.
Yeah.
And like this underground tunnel between them. And like, we know all of this.
Cool.
And think of how dumb that makes, not dumb, but like, because I don't think he's dumb. I think he's in over his head.
Yeah.
He's bit off more than he can chew. Yeah. But think about it, like Walt just goes home. Like he's not just, he doesn't, like Gus is so prepared.
Yeah.
it's reasonable to believe that if Walt hadn't gotten Gus's way, Gus would likely never have been caught. Period.
Right. And we knew all this. Like, it's not like Breaking Bad doesn't work without Better Call Saul. But once you watch Better Call Saul, yeah, you're right. You just get a lot of history, but it isn't just history that serves as lore for Breaking Bad. It's history and plot that is meaningful in the present with Jimmy. Going back to the conversation about the endings of the shows, it's interesting because, we talked about Walt's, the appropriate ending for Walt. And I'm thinking, like, what do I feel like are the main, there's a subtle difference between Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and that Breaking Bad is a very philosophical show. It's very interested in like the cautionary element of Walt's story and, the general like morality tale almost of and Better Call Saul is a lot more, and so the heightened nature of Breaking Bad, it's not allegory, but it's almost appropriate because it serves to prove an overall philosophical point. Yeah. And Better Call Saul, in that it's less bombastic and less like I don't know, colorful. It's I'd say it's versus philosophical. It's like a more psychological show. It's a lot more. There's a lot more subtle human behavior that shapes how the show goes versus like here's the tale of Jimmy McGill, like as in here's the tale of Walter White. Like it's almost like you could picture like Walt's story, told over centuries, like the man who created the empire. He's like a faded Roman emperor almost. Yeah. And Jimmy is just like, we're gonna explore a vast web of narcissists and people and mom complexes and toxic relationships and enabling behavior. Like we're going to explore all of these things. Like someone cracked. And so it's almost like the Vince Gilligan cracked a philosophy book and Peter Gould cracked a psychology encyclopedia. And that's like the root of what they base their shows on. It's very similar, but it causes the characters in the world to feel a little bit differently.
It's true. In a weird way, like Jimmy is almost the most grounded character on the show. And everybody else has like these big goals and these big like aspirations and they have big personalities and they have all these big things going on. And Jimmy is almost like stuck in the middle of all of this, to the point where when finally, it all comes crashing down, he has no choice but to basically craft a new persona, because the blank slate that he was, the blank slate may not be the right term, but like the neutral party that he was not working out, right? Because we know, I mean, from the beginning, right? Slip and Jimmy, like this has always been a thing. And yet we see remorse on Jimmy. We see him trying to change his ways. Yeah. We see all these things. And eventually, even though he flirts over and over and over with the Slip and Jimmy that like way of life, eventually it is Kim who surpasses him in it. Right. And you see what that does to him, which is like, whoa, I've pushed this person I love down a really ugly path that I myself was on. And it's like this weird reality check for him. And from that point, it feels like he's a little bit detached. Like, I want to do these things because it makes you happy and I love you, but my heart's not really in all of this anymore. And then finally, when it all comes crashing down, he's just a shell of who he was, and he has to pretend to be something. And that's all that's all Saul Goodman is. Well,
and it's like a reaction almost like from and they see that in the show. Like, he watched his dad get taken advantage of over and over again for being an honest person. Yeah. And then he grows up with this prick moralizing asshole of a big brother who is constantly like hitting him with these high ideals and judging him even when he's not doing anything actively dishonest. That's such a big part of the show. But yeah, I think I wrote that Jimmy for most of the series is undeserving of the ire of his detractors, of Howard, of Charles. Most of the time it's like, what the fuck, you guys? Like, I'm trying to do better. Like, I know I was like a grifter, but like I've clearly turned over a new leaf, and no one will let him move on with his life. And so I'm with him for most of the series. And once we, flash forward a little bit, the show is a little sudden in its switch flipping on Jimmy. It's like it paints his decision to be Saul Goodman as his way of like throwing himself into his talents after Kim leaves him, into this identity that he can't seem to sort of let die. Whether it's from his past or his questionable actions as the lawyer James McGill, or as the fugitive Gene Takovic.
Yep.
He always seems to come back to Slip and Jimmy because nothing else is enough for him. Like, like even with the Davis and Maine job, it's just like, there's nothing like this job is too simple. I don't know if it's excitement or what, but frankly, because of Slip and Jimmy, the world will not accept him otherwise or allow him to succeed otherwise. And so for most of the show, you feel like he has really no choice but to become Saul Goodman, because everyone's going to treat him like a scumbag anyways.
Yes. And everyone does.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like two things. It's an addiction for him, right? It's this weird pull towards the con man lifestyle. Yeah. But it is also something that he's actively trying to repress, something that he's trying to escape from. And like you said, no one will let him escape from it.
If only he had the support of his peers.
Right. And not even Kim will let him escape from it. And not even Kim will recognize that this guy's trying to do something different and better. And then eventually, I think it's two things. When he becomes Saul, it is both a way to cope. It's playing a character so I don't have to live in the world, this crappy world I created for myself. Yeah. But it's also, well, this is the only thing that I have to offer, apparently, and the only way that anyone will ever see me. So I'm just going to lean fully into it, and I'll be that. And when Kim comes to, sign the divorce papers and she barely recognizes him. Yeah. That's a show. That's Jimmy putting on a show, being a character that he isn't. And we see that when you rewatch Breaking Bad, obviously when Breaking Bad was being written, they did not know all of this backstory, right? They didn't. I do believe they probably knew some of it, like maybe broad strokes, like, hey, they said in the first episode he appears in, my name's actually Jimmy McGill, right? So they probably knew some things, but they didn't know all the things.
What kind of guy is Saul Goodman? He's a guy. He's a plastic man. Like he's a guy who has a facade. Yeah. He's a fast talking wise guy type. But that's not who he really is.
But you don't know if you can ever trust him.
Right. And he's not courageous. Like that's not who he is. It's a front he puts on to survive in this world. And we have vague references to like a past with some hardened cartel criminals, which is then paid off in this show.
Yeah. And when you watch Breaking Bad, you start to see the performance of it. Yeah. And I think, again, I'm not sure if that's intended, but maybe it's just through context. I'm starting to look at it differently and go, yeah, he's clearly performing, because you see him get scared a lot on Breaking Bad. Yeah. And you see the veneer drop. And it's this moment. There's a moment where Mike attacks him and is like, I'm going to break your legs. And you see, at least to my eyes, you see Jimmy for a second. Mm-hmm. Like, after all that they've been through, Mike also has turned on me, and is fully on Fring's, in Fring's court. And then on top of that, obviously the moment towards the end of the series when Jimmy calls the disappearer and says, like, I just want out. Right. Yeah. That's totally a Jimmy McGill move. It's, look, it's over. It's done. I'm running away. And this is exactly what he did when everything went down with Kim. He just didn't physically run away. He ran away into a personality. He ran away into a facade. And now that's broken. And the only thing you can do is run away physically and into another facade. And it just kind of rings true throughout both shows, which is a feat in and of itself, because you don't often see sequel shows or prequel shows that stay consistent with their characters. Like spinoffs are notorious for this, right? Like you take a character like Joey from Friends and spin him off. Mm-hmm. You have to change the character fundamentally because now he's a lead, right? And it won't work. That's why Joey lasted 13 episodes and half of them never aired or whatever. Like that's the downside of a spinoff. But somehow this works. And it rings true. Yeah,
they kind of proved that it can be done, but only with, the utmost care, which most showrunners and corporations are not capable of.
Yeah, or not interested in.
But there are exceptions. Yeah. I mean, like, Frasier is a spinoff of Cheers, and yes, that's a long running, well liked show that is now getting new stuff, and it's so it can happen, but it doesn't most of the time does not happen.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too that they decided I meant to make this point like 30 minutes ago and I just keep forgetting it, but like it's interesting that they decided, like with Breaking Bad and El Camino and Better Call Saul, like, they had their ending for Walt. And then, there's the ending for Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad. And then with El Camino, they were like, kicking around, like, could we make a thing? And so we talked about this when we talked about El Camino, but like, this idea that there was somewhat of an adventure to be had in showing how the ending to Jesse's story instead of just implying it. Like it's strong enough in Breaking Bad because he escapes. That's the point. Jesse's free. He survives the series, but El Camino, it gives this satisfying conclusion to Jesse's actual story and his character growth. And, they were trying to break story I think they were trying to figure out how to end Better Call Saul. And they essentially came up with this idea that like maybe Jesse should get caught, but feel like a tremendous sense of relief. Like he ends, maybe El Camino ends with him in jail, but he doesn't feel any more guilt.
He's okay. Yeah.
He's all right. And then they said, he was talking with the Better Call Saul writers, and it kind of everyone agreed like that should be Saul's ending. Like Saul, that makes more sense for him. Like Jesse should get away. Like that. That's the ultimate like triumphant ending for that character. Like you don't need him to die like Walter. We've done that. Jesse has suffered, and it's better that he escapes and finds closure that way. Saul should not get away with what he has done, but he doesn't deserve to die. He has spent his life making a mockery of the law. And he must now face justice, the justice system that he, subverted, spent his career subverting and twisting to his own whims. And those are all very poetic endings for all three of those characters.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's what they deserve.
It is that, death, escape, like death, freedom, and justice being the three, like that it makes total sense. I always thought, like when I saw El Camino, and I've seen it a couple times, that
we watched it after Better Call Saul ended.
Okay. When I rewatched it, when I watched it both times, I felt like, something feels a little off. Like obviously Jesse's been traumatized, but it almost doesn't feel like Jesse. Like he's so quiet and so like shattered. But then I watched Breaking Bad again, and he is that same way throughout the majority of season 4. Yeah. He's just killed Gail Bedecker. Yeah. And he's a shell. He is quiet. He's contemplative. He's like for the first time thinking level-headedly about things. He can see through Walt's manipulation. Yep. He can see through Gus's manipulation. He feels level-headed, and that feels like the end of El Camino to me, or like El Camino to me. Yeah. And then if you take into account that, yeah, he definitely was traumatized from his time with Todd and the Nazis.
Well, and he was coming out of it in the beginning of season 5, like, magnets, bitch. Like he was a little bit more like he was moving on. Yes. He was moving on. And then everything that happened with Uncle Jack and the neo-Nazis.
And Andrea.
And Andrea. And it's just, he's right back into just disassociating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so now rewatching, it feels way more consistent than I thought it did. And the other thing like that I found interesting, and I love that each thing does this. There's flash forwards and flashbacks and all of these things. And what I did, so when I watched, when I got to Breaking Bad's episode where it's called Better Call Saul, it's the first appearance of Saul. And you have that moment where Saul is on his knees in the desert. I paused it. I pulled up Better Call Saul and I watched those scenes that they added in Better Call Saul, the like both before and immediately following that.
Right.
And then I watched the scene where Mike comes to Jimmy or comes to Saul and says, his name's Walter White. He's a real amateur. Don't get in business with him. And he goes, oh, okay. And he finds out where he teaches and he leaves. Mm-hmm. And then you watch the scene in Breaking Bad where he shows up in Walt's classroom. Yeah. And then the scene with Jesse in Better Call Saul doesn't connect to anything, not truly. But then there is the scene in El Camino that takes place after 4 Days Out, the episode from Breaking Bad. And so I watched that too. When I watched that episode 4 Days Out, I pulled up the scene of Walt and Jesse in the diner from El Camino. And what's interesting, I mean, obviously these characters have all aged, like the actors have all aged, and they're, kind of all over the place in terms of where they are in the actual years they've been filming this. But what's interesting is how consistent it is. And I can't think of any other project or series of projects where it has this level of consistency that I can watch a scene from an entire Breaking Bad episode followed by a couple scenes of Better Call Saul and feel no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the actors are older, but that's it.
There is some parts where I'm like, okay, like the most noticeable thing was in El Camino when Jesse Plemons shows up. It's like, bro's like 100 pounds heavier. Yeah. In this,
And it's one of those things where it's like, what I would have preferred you wait until he can get back in shape.
Seriously.
And if he's contractually obligated to something else, just wait. Yeah. But I understand it. And I read something recently that was like, it was like in Better Call Saul's defense of not doing digitally de-aging. And it was like this article, and it was, explaining why if any other studio had done this, they would have digitally de-aged these characters to make it more in line. And it was like, but why? These are actors. We know the actors are a different age now. Yeah. But so what's really the point in spending the extra money to make us less connected to the characters?
It's crazy. I was watching with that person rewatching the Breaking Bad. I was watching that season 3. I was watching, Mike have a gun to Walter's head before they go to Gail's apartment. And I was like, wow, Mike looks so young, like his skin's so smooth. Yeah. And I was like, it's only like a few years difference, but like Jonathan Banks's face is so different in Better Call Saul. And then, but like actors like the guy who plays Victor, like he's heavier and, but at the same time, you just go, all right, maybe Victor lost weight. It's fine. Like maybe Victor lost weight. Like at least it's not Jesse Plemons sticks out in El Camino because it's if you were to watch these events, if you were to put them on an editing timeline and watch all of these events happen in chronological order, Todd would be very puffy one day. Like he got stung by a bunch of bees.
Yeah, right. I always notice it. To me, Giancarlo Esposito kind of in Better Call Saul looks a good bit like a lot older.
Oh yeah, heavier.
Yeah, and
his hair's different.
His hair's different, and it's just like, you know what?
What can you do?
You can either let it take you out, or you can just acknowledge, like, you're going to be taken out of the experience one way or another. One way, you realize these actors are too old to be playing younger versions of the characters, or you're taken out by the fact that this all looks plastic and digital. And so pick your poison.
Exactly.
And I would take this any day. I'm always so shocked the difference between Jimmy McGill and Saul Goodman on Breaking Bad. That Jimmy McGill, obviously the hair is different, like that's a big deal. But like in Breaking Bad, Saul's heavier. He's younger, but he's heavier. And so it's weird but fitting that in Better Call Saul, he seems to be in better shape, right? So it's almost like he, puts on some weight, and like that makes sense. But like, again, like you're going to be taken out one way or another. I'd much rather reap the benefits of seeing every tick the actor, which these actors are all great, every tick the actor can put into their performance rather than some smeary digital paste over it.
Yeah. And like even stuff like Bob Odenkirk, it's like, all right, this guy's he's playing himself like 20 years younger than he's supposed to be. Yeah. And that's tough. It's tough for me to believe that this character is like 40, but like after a while, like with his goofy like wig and stuff, you just go, it kind of fits. Like he's just, I looked at his hairstyle as like, he's papering over what a scumbag he really is on the inside. It's just him trying to look like a square in a world where he's a shark, So it somewhat fits.
Yeah. The thing that everybody seems to want to point out in terms of all these, aging and de-aging and blah, 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 is two things. One, the fact that in all of his post Breaking Bad appearances, Bryan Cranston wears a bald cap. Which I thought looked a lot better in Better Call Saul than it did in El Camino.
I still was like, oh, like you got that mega mind head.
Yeah, you still get taken out of it. But again, fine, what are you whatever. Gonna do? I guess I'd rather see him than not.
Especially considering that in El Camino, he that was like a 1-day shoot. Yes. That guy flew in from New York.
Yep.
Because he's in the middle of doing like a play or something.
I think it was that LBJ.
He was doing the LBJ play. Yeah. And he had like a single weekend as a break, and you couldn't, you can't just be like, oh, I need to go film this cameo. Like you can't tell anybody. So they flew him down there, put all the makeup on him, nails the scene. They fly him back to New York. And then they flew him back like on a Sunday. He had to be on stage that night. Imagine like if anything happens.
Yep.
A whole play has to cancel.
Exactly.
On Broadway.
Yep.
It's crazy. How was your weekend, Brian? Deal. He has to just pretend he was like,
didn't do much.
Taking naps and shit. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Didn't fly to Albuquerque.
That's for sure.
That much. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
No, but it's true. And then the other thing that everybody talks about is Aaron Paul. That Aaron Paul clearly, like in Better Call Saul, he's playing a pre-Breaking Bad version of himself in that scene with Kim, which would put him somewhere around 20-ish years old.
Yeah.
And, Aaron Paul at this point is in his 40s. It's a big age difference.
It is.
And it is noticeable, and everyone's like, his voice is so deep and whatever. And I remember hearing them say like, again, Aaron Paul had 1 day for that shoot on Better Call Saul. And he had a severe migraine that day.
Oh, he did?
He had a severe migraine. And so like he was in his trailer with the lights off, like laying down. Oh. They said, all right, come to set. He does his scene and goes back and lays in the dark. And because he's just like, miserable. Dying. He's miserable. And it's something that people don't often think about when they think about like, oh, how hard is it to be an actor? Yeah. I'm like, well, think about it on days like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you've got a severe migraine and there's millions of dollars riding on this day.
You can't really call in sick.
You can't call in sick. You got to go do it. And you have to pretend you don't have that migraine and put on a performance with full energy.
Yeah.
Like that's I say an easy scene. That's a scene of, standing talking.
Yeah.
Imagine if you have a splitting headache and you're Chris Evans and you have an action scene in Captain America.
Or you're
sorry, bro.
Yeah. Like it works out that Harrison Ford can just shoot the guy in Indiana Jones because he's pooping his pants like crazy. Yeah. But like, that's just them thinking like, oh, it makes sense. And also I'm shitting myself.
Yes,
like you can't just say, Chris Evans can't say like, hey, I'm shitting my pants. Do you think Cap would just like do something else? Like, no, Cap's going to fight these people. Chris, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Like all you do at that point is you just have to change the cover, adjust the coverage and be like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to use I
thought you were going to say change the pants.
Change the pants.
You just got to change the pants every shot.
You say, Chris, you're just going to do the scene, and if you shit your pants, you're just going to shit your pants.
Look, we'll digitally paint it out.
But can you imagine that there exists somewhere like just numerous production stills of Chris Evans has obviously shit his pants.
Poop on the floor behind him.
He's in like midair, like about to punch a guy, and there's just a big brown spot in his butt.
Some editor some VFX artist is sitting there like painting it out going,
America's ass just exploded.
Crapped America.
Captain DeJardia. That's hard. And especially it's like, oh, cool. We got Aaron Paul for one day. He's going to come all the way in. Like, that's really difficult to adjust.
Yeah.
Like, there's no time to adjust to the set. You just come in. And then, on top of that, you have a splitting migraine. There is no, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. It's like, there's no,
it is what it is.
This is the one day you could possibly do this. And it's,
exactly.
That's crazy.
So, but people had that same complaint too. If you remember at the end of Breaking Bad, I think it's the episode Ozymandias is the very last, that was not the last episode, but the last shot of the series happened for that episode. And so it was a flashback to their very first cook. And so Walt and Jesse are in the RV in Tahajali. They, at that point, Aaron Paul had a shaved head. So they had put a wig on him to look like his hair from season 1. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people at that point were like, I can't buy this because Aaron Paul looks heavier. He's more mature, even in just Breaking Bad.
Right.
So extend that out to now another decade later.
Yeah.
Like, it is noticeable. But again, I don't care. It doesn't take me out. I'd much rather have that than digital, and I'd much rather have that than another actor.
Yeah.
So this is fine with me. And anybody who sits and wants to complain about it, I just go, all the alternatives suck.
They do. And so considering everything else that the shows do right, it's pretty incredible.
Potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This show, Better Call Saul, has yet to win an Emmy.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Like, it's nominated for 4, I think.
Yeah.
This year.
My hope is that Bob Odenkirk will finally win, and that Ray Seahorn, like, she's got to win. Like, to me, Ray Seahorn may be the standout in this entire series.
She's amazing in this show.
You could point to so many examples of her brilliance, but the one that everybody will point to for years to come is the scene on the bus, where it's I can't remember which episode it is. It's towards the end. It's this episode that Vince directed. It's in black and white. She's on the bus coming back to Florida, I think. I think she's leaving Albuquerque, and she is sitting there and everything's quiet and you can't quite tell what's going on in Kim's mind. And then it's like this huge explosion of tears, right? Like, it's like, you cannot possibly keep this in. So this isn't your typical actor, like, tears start flowing. Instead, this is like, I'm trying everything in my power to not make this audible, but it is. And how an actor is able to play that, I do not understand. But you can see everything in her performance that she cannot help the noises she's making, and she does not want to be making them. And that's a lot of layers for an actor to play, and she does it so brilliantly. And I think there's maybe no finer performance on the show than that. And it's just brilliant.
So Better Call Saul is up against, in the Outstanding Drama Series, it's up against Andor, actually, The Crown, House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Succession, The White Lotus, and Yellow Jackets.
Yeah. Heavy competition.
Yes. I feel like it has the most threat from Succession, another show that also has concluded.
Yeah.
And The Last of Us, probably just because it's popular, and probably most of those shows, honestly. But like, I don't know why House of the Dragon. Like, okay, slowly roll. It's been like one season. Yeah. Like, relax.
Right.
And Andor, I don't know how that even got on there. It's kind of surprising. Yeah. But like Bob Odenkirk himself, he is up against Jeff Bridges, and then there's 3 actors from Succession. There's Brian Cox, Kieran Culkin, and Jeremy Strong, and then there's Pedro Pascal for The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Rhea Seehorn is up against, okay, so we got Rhea Seehorn, we got J. Smith Cameron for Succession, we got Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown, and then we have 5 actors from The White Lotus.
Good Lord.
There's 8 people in this category.
That is
so
insane.
She's up against those people, and then Simona Tabasco, Aubrey Plaza, Sabrina Impacciatore, Megan Fahey, and Jennifer Coolidge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, I've not seen The White Lotus. I hear great things.
Right.
But man, I just feel like Ray deserves this. Like, she's so good.
She's really great in this show. And also, like, he's not nominated, but Patrick Fabian as Howard Hamlin in the show. He was always great.
Yes.
Charles McKeon is great in the show as Charles McGill.
Michael McKeon.
What else? Oh, Charles.
Yeah.
Chuck's great as Chuck.
Yep.
Yeah, everyone's really great.
It's great across the board. I mean, obviously your returning actors are all great. Michael Mando is fantastic. Like,
he's really great.
Michael Mando in this. Yeah. And I'm so bummed that we never got to see Michael Mando as Scorpion in the Spider-Man franchise. Because you remember he's in Homecoming.
Yeah, he is.
And I don't know, man. I love Michael Mando in this role. I love his role in the show. Like, he's that character. Nacho is such like this tortured character. And I think it was needed, right? Because we saw all of these like evil Hispanic men. We needed one with a heart of gold. We needed one that was like, I'm just trying to take care of my dad and like all this. And
he was great.
Yeah. His last few episodes are just so tense.
So good.
So good. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really love both shows. I couldn't say which one I love more than the other, but to me, it's the rare example of these 3 properties: Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, El Camino, being tonally consistent and worldly consistent. And I don't know that that's ever happened 3 times.
No.
And it's a minor miracle that this happened at all, and that I like any of it, because I'm sure somewhere on the podcast is a flashback moment where we expressed doubt over Better Call Saul when it was announced.
Oh, I certainly expressed doubt. I was furious that they were making it. I did not support this show existing. Yeah. Nor did I want anything built on top of the Breaking Bad lore.
But you remember back when it was first announced, I think it was announced as like a half-hour comedy.
Oh, see, I don't remember. It sounds familiar though.
That was its original incarnation was as a half-hour comedy that would take place like in the courtroom.
Gilligan and Gould considered making a half-hour legal comedy featuring Saul and his various clients, but settled on an hour-long tragedy showing how he develops into the character seen in Breaking Bad. Yeah.
It's like, so when we first hear half-hour comedy, I'm like, this is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And the fact that it became what it became is great. Now, I think I'm done with the Breaking Bad world. Like, I don't want any more. I don't think you can roll the dice and it come up in your favor again. I would accept a Skinny Pete and Badger Christmas special, but that's all I'll accept. I accept nothing else.
Yeah. I would accept a recast prequel series of Mike as a crooked cop in Philadelphia.
There you go.
But at that point, you're so disconnected from Breaking Bad, it may as well just be a different, its own thing. You know?
Right, exactly. It wouldn't take place.
You're just
in
making
Albuquerque.
The Shield in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly.
Christ's sake, Vic Mackey's even bald. Just go watch The Shield.
Just go watch The Shield. Pretend. I don't know. I don't know what else you do with it. I mean, I think it has to be done. And I'm okay with that. Like, we got something really great, really special. And I love it. I think that, when I recommend it to people, Better Call Saul, I do have to preface it a little bit with, you may have to get through the first couple seasons, and again, and not because they're bad, but because if you go into Better Call Saul expecting more Breaking Bad, you're not going to get it for a few seasons. Yeah, like you get shades of it, right? Like Tuco's in the first season of Better Call Saul, so you get shades of it, but it is not a Breaking Bad show until it is. And so like, that's always kind of the way I preface it, is like, first of all, don't watch it if you haven't seen Breaking Bad. Like, I know there are always the people that do anyway, and more power to them, the people who watch the Star Wars prequels before the originals, and that's fine. But I think you get a worse experience that way.
I was going to ask you because there's always people who go like, well, what order should you watch this in? And there are people who just go like, well, Better Call Saul. But to me, you should watch, honestly, with anything that plays with chronology, like even the Marvel movies, it's like, what order should I watch them in? It's like, you should probably just watch them in the order they were released. Like that's always a safe bet, because that's what everyone else did. Yeah. Like if you really want to watch like Captain Marvel or, before like Iron Man, like you can, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, you don't have to experience it in chronological order to be able to conceptualize it in chronological order, because like whatever. But Better Call Saul, it's like, well, considering that the show spoils the fate of a lot of the characters in Breaking Bad, you should probably not watch it first, even though most of it takes place before Breaking Bad. Its story only has meaning after Breaking Bad.
Even if you watched all of Better Call Saul minus the black and white scenes and held all of those black and white scenes and episodes to after Breaking Bad, I still think you get a lesser experience, because it is a prequel, but it is very well aware that you know what things are.
Yes.
So an example of this is, I think it's season 5. There's a moment where I think it's Mike ends up in Mexico in like a little town that Gus owns, and there's a little fountain in the middle dedicated to Max. And I think the name of the episode is Dedicado a Max. And it's two things. One, it's a mention of Max, who we don't get anything about in Better Call Saul, right? Because they assume you've seen Breaking Bad. Yes. And two, it's a visual reference because it's a pool. Yeah. And there's a moment in the last season where, and I think it may be the last episode that Gus is in, where Gus meets with Don Eladio and Hector Salamanca, and you see the fire in, like, literally, you see the fire they're sitting around a bonfire, and you see the fire reflected in Gus's eyes.
Yeah.
And the passion that burns in him for the death of these men. And then it like cuts to a shot of the pool where Max was. It's an exact shot. The camera's in the water where Max is floating face down, but this time we're just looking up through the water at Gus. And if you did not know that, you would not understand that shot. You wouldn't understand that moment.
Even just things as much as like, that shot looking up from like the foot level when Tuco first shows up and opens the door and points the gun at Saul and he gets in the house, he comes out. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, you're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah. Okay. So he's got a gun. Cool. Whatever.
Okay.
Big deal.
It's a Hispanic man with a gun. He looks kind of mean, but let's hear him out,
Right.
Right. But if you've seen Breaking Bad, like, oh shit, that's Tuco,
Yeah. And you lose a lot of like the excitement over like the super labs being built and like all of these things.
Well, yes.
Here's Hank and Gomi,
Right. Yeah. It's like, okay. Yeah. But like, to me, it's like, if you were to watch Better Call Saul first, it overinflates his overall importance. Yeah. By the time you get to Breaking Bad, you're like, oh, can't wait to see Saul. And you don't see him till like, the second season.
Season.
You're like, but he's like a side character. So it's almost like, oh man, like I watched a whole series where like I figured out this human being. It's kind of weird now that he's not the main character. And to me, like the main character starts with the first thing that happened. And so the first thing that happened in Breaking Bad was Walter White. And it's only after that story has concluded, and then you watch El Camino and you get to see Jesse finish up. And then it's only after El Camino do comments in the black and white future make sense. Like, oh, I heard they found his car down by the border. And if you've seen El Camino, like, oh, because he told Badger to drive the car to the border and leave it because he wants everyone to think that his plan worked. The authorities think that Jesse fled to Mexico, like his only problem once he establishes that is overcoming the criminal element in Albuquerque. The cops are dealt with as soon as Badger and Pete are out of the story. There's no more threat from the police directly.
Correct.
There's just incidental, like, oh, Robert Forster calls the police, on him. But like the cops are not like Jesse Pinkman's still in Albuquerque. Yeah. I guess there's the cars that are like at his parents' house, but like they don't, that's just a precaution. They're pretty convinced he went south.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. But like, I was thinking about with like Star Wars prequels and stuff too, like all that kind of stuff. Like the more of those they make, the harder it is to go, okay, what order should you watch this in? But my rule is always a safe place to start is the order of creation, the order it was released. Just start there and you'll be fine. If it doesn't work, you're right here with the rest of us who are confused a little bit, but whoever made it is aware of what exists in the world already and is expecting you to have seen it and to know it. And the same with the Star Wars prequels. Like if you're going to watch a whole trilogy about Anakin Skywalker, and then you go to episode 4 and it's like, I mean, he's a significant character, but he's not like the main character. Yeah. It's kind of weird to watch a movie that's mostly not about him all of a sudden. Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like it's doing you a disservice to make you think that he's more important, than he is. It works better in retrospect. Cause then you go, where's Luke? Oh, he's not here yet. Oh, okay. Yep.
Right.
Who else is here?
Right. In terms of prequels, one of the things I wanted to mention was how often, like when a prequel comes around, one of the first sentiments out of naysayers' mouths is always, well, I know how it's going to end, so why do I care? There's no tension here because I know how it's going to end. Oh, no one's going to die because I know. And Better Call Saul did a couple things smart. Like, obviously, we know Gus isn't going to die. Obviously, know Mike's not going to die. Obviously, know Saul's not going to die.
Hector.
But we do not know anything about Kim. Yeah. And the show very wisely makes you care for Kim, maybe more than anybody else.
I was so nervous for the entire show about what was going to happen to Kim. I spent most of the show thinking that he was going to get her killed.
I did too. I was like, she has to die. Like, that's the only way. I'm so glad she didn't.
No.
I think the ending is way better.
Not only does she not, they very cleverly sort of use her as like this final enabling tool.
Yeah.
You know, that pushes him over the edge, and then decides at the last second that like that she needs to be better. She needs to get better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. And I think that was a very wise decision, but also having now the benefit of seeing the whole series, one of the things that they did was smart was we've been calling this a Better Call Saul a Breaking Bad prequel the entire time. I don't think that's an accurate term. I think it's a Breaking Bad sequel. So all of that black and white stuff is a sequel.
Yeah.
It's a Breaking Bad sequel, and the entire color part of the show is context needed to make that make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's, this moment where Saul, in the end here, he's sitting around a table, he's talking them down from this life sentence, and I think talks them down to like 7 years. It's nothing. He talks this sentence way down, and I love that Marie's there, by the way. And,
so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he talks them down, and then he has this big change of heart, right? He goes to court and fesses up to everything, right? Walter White would be nothing without me. And receives his 86-year sentence or whatever it was. And there's no way that decision makes any sense if we hadn't experienced the entirety of Better Call Saul. So in other words, in this weird alternate universe where they make Breaking Bad and then they tack this on at the end to tell us what happens to Saul, we would have no idea why he makes that decision.
Right.
We'd see a blonde woman in the courtroom and go, who's that? Why does this matter?
Yeah.
Although I guess she was brunette at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
But regardless. We would just be like, I don't understand this at all. So the real way to look at this is it's a sequel, and all of it is context for that sequel.
Yeah.
So the tension isn't there of like, is he going to die?
Right. Sure.
But now that we know the show is actually a sequel, he totally could have. Exactly.
Like you ultimately, once you put that together as you're watching it, even the first season, you're like, oh, like maybe he does. Like, obviously if we're in color, we're safe, but like, we don't know what happens to him at the end of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. And not to mention, like you said, like they not only cleverly got around that by the black and white, sequel stuff, but they populate the cast largely with people we've never seen before.
Yes.
Yeah. And so for most of the time, you're like, and it's not even about like, you're not scared for his fate. You're worried about what his actions will do to the people around him.
Yes.
And it's bad.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And the last thing, sort of my last big point is, although this isn't necessarily the end of the conversation, is Breaking Bad had some of the best villains in TV history, right? Yeah. Whether it's Tuco or Gus or Uncle Jack, right? Like these, or Todd, I think rather. These characters who were antagonistic and threatening and memorable. Even Lydia, to an extent, was her own weird little way. And you look at Better Call Saul and you're like, oh, so it's like a legal thing, and okay, that's fine. When are we going to get to like a villain?
Yeah. And
then the show gives me what I think is my favorite villain in the entire universe. Lore, which is Lalo.
Lalo. Ooh.
I love Lalo. I would watch a full on Lalo like life story, soup to nuts, just beginning to end. I want to see everything about this man.
Sure.
And then, I think I mentioned too in my Hawkeye review how little they used him.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, this is Tony Dalton, the most charismatic villain in television history.
Yeah.
and you got him like sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, well, they probably were like, okay, because at that point people have seen him on Better Call Saul, so it's like, they use him as a red herring on that show because to good effect, because he absolutely seems like someone who's up to no good, you know?
Yep.
With his mustache and his smile.
Yep.
Son of a bitch.
I know. But I love Lalo, and I think that the payoff of, like you said, that one line in Breaking Bad is phenomenal. And I also thank you, Peter Gould, for that, because if you ever hear Vince talk about it, he's like, yeah, you know, I knew we had this line in Breaking Bad about like, oh, you're Lalo, did Ignacio send you whatever? Yeah. It to me, it had to be paid off in Better Call Saul, but Vince tried to convince Peter, no, that was a throwaway. We don't have to introduce Lalo. Right. And Peter was like adamant, no, we have to introduce Lalo. Yeah. And so I'm glad Peter won that argument, because I love Lalo.
Yeah, and well, like, and again, like Peter Gould wrote that script for the Better Call Saul episode where we meet Saul Goodman, or sorry, for the Breaking Bad episode titled Better Call Saul, where we meet Saul Goodman. Yep. And they drive him out to the desert. All that stuff. It's just like, so in writing that line, as the writer, you have to think, what is he worried about?
What does this mean?
So when you say a line like, you know, did Lalo send you? It wasn't me, it was Ignacio. Yeah. You don't just write that. You go, what's he worried about? Yep. And so you, at bare minimum, you write down, there's someone named Lalo that he's afraid of. And
that was betrayed by Ignacio.
Yeah. That was betrayed by a guy named Ignacio. And maybe you go, maybe he's one of the Salamancas, you know, maybe this guy's name is Nacho, or maybe you don't, but you just go, you make sure it makes sense within the context of Breaking Bad, and it does. And so then later when you're doing all this work, it's just like, that still works. It still works. It doesn't take away from Better Call Saul that I pay off this line, because I do need a villain to come up from Mexico who's going to be one of the Salamancas. Lalo, that's fine. It works. Got this character, Ignacio, like this whole thing, like, and it's a perfect arc for him. I'm sure that was sort of just happenstance, but I'm sure that when they're thinking about, you know, having Michael Mando's character and what they wanted to do with him, at a certain point, it became clear, like, he would turn on the cartel because he does want out, because he's a good person and he's trying to protect his dad, you know?
Yeah. I love that Nacho is responsible for Hector's condition,
disability. Yeah, I love that. That's really cool.
It's just like, I love all of these things that I don't know. It's just it's world building. It's fun. It's, you know, there's lore to it. Like, we know all these things now, but if I hadn't known it, I don't think I would have missed it. Like, well, you missed your opportunity to tell me how Hector got in a wheelchair, but, but I'm so glad that they did. And they brought in so many people, whether it was Crazy 8. Yeah. Was in several episodes.
Yeah, he was. He was in there a lot.
Yeah, he gets his nickname in these episodes.
That's right.
In one of the episodes, and then you have Spooge. Spooge shows up.
He's like a regular person.
Yeah, before he gets on meth.
Yeah, and he's like super serious and angry. Like, listen, Mr. Goodman.
yeah, and I'm like, dude. Yeah, your head's about to get crushed by an ATM machine.
Yeah, you got like 5 years left, bud.
Yeah, right. And. Yeah, dude. And like Wendy, obviously, from the motel, like all of these characters eventually end up coming back. Obviously, Hank and Gomi. We talked about Walt and Jesse. Yeah. We see Marie. We do not see Junior or Skylar, but that's fine.
Yeah. I think that was just a scheduling conflict or something. Yeah. Or I remember reading it, and I think they finally said, like, there just wasn't a reason to bring them in. Yeah. Like would they, and I think for most of the discussion for them, I think they debated bringing more of those characters back for like the black and white sections.
Sure.
Like if Marie shows up, like, but at that point it's like, you don't really need, you know, like you don't really need Walter Jr. or Skylar there, because Saul has not hurt them. He has hurt Marie. Yeah. Like he is somewhat responsible for Hank's death by enabling Walt.
Yeah.
he did not victimize Walt. Like Walt is the aggressor. Walt is the perpetrator.
It's true. I think there's another reason to this, and this is just me spitballing here. But if you have in the courtroom Skylar and Marie, you have to then write a scene about them, and now you've stolen the show away from Saul.
I also think they're probably not speaking.
I think they'll never speak again.
I wouldn't be surprised if Skylar and Walter Jr. and Holly like didn't just leave New Mexico.
I think that Walter Jr. may speak to Marie, but I don't think Skylar ever will. No. Like I think Jr. was so, he was, Hank was his hero. Right. And I think he idolized Hank in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I think by extension, then his Aunt Marie. I've often wondered what happens to some of these characters. Like I think with Marie, I think she does just kind of continue living her life and doing her Marie stuff with, purple furniture and stealing from yard sales or whatever. But or open houses. But Skylar, like I think Skylar's broken. And I think that Skylar's going to stay broken forever. And that sucks. Like I hear a lot of people who really hate Skylar, and I don't. I love that character. And especially on a rewatch, you realize how victimized she is. And yes, at a certain point she joins, but only because she's scared and she doesn't know what to do. And I think if you could see it from her eye, through her perspective, I think you would feel for her more. But I think she's broken.
The line in there, like they're talking about buying the car wash or whatever, and Walt is like, "Don't get involved in the money laundering," like, and whatever. And she says something like, "No one is going to believe that I completely knew nothing."
Yeah.
Like
right.
One, it makes me look stupid.
Right.
But two, like no one is going to buy that all this was going on without me being aware of it.
Yeah.
And so at that point, she has sort of recognized, like, it's not that I let myself get to this point. It's that I was so oblivious or in denial that by the time I actually found out what was going on.
Yeah. It was too late.
And I'm part of this. And the only way I get out of it is by turning Walt in, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so everything she does at that point is I'm better off married to him and therefore unable to testify against him.
Yeah.
And helping him to, I don't even know how she justifies it. I don't know if she justifies it like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if Skylar, like, because she knows that Walt cooks meth, so she knows that he's hurting people.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how she justifies it, or if she's just thinking, I don't know, but I know that we need to launder the money or else the bad men will come for my family. I think that's what it is. At that point, danger is a big concern for her.
I think it's that. I think she also states that she doesn't want Junior to know ever. Because she's like, he idolizes you. Mm-hmm. And if he finds any of this out, then, all that's gone. And I look like the bad guy because, I didn't stop you, but also I let you, but also like all of these things, like I can't win for losing here with him. Yep. And so no matter what I do, he's going to hate me and he's going to hate you, and we lose him forever. Yeah. And I think that's, I think that weighs heavily on her, and obviously Holly too. But she is stuck, and there's a couple scenes that point to this. There's a moment where Walt tells her something about the money, like it's more money to launder than she thought. And he's like, look, if you want to be involved, be involved. If you don't, then don't. And she looks at him and is like, I am involved. Right. Like you involved me in this. Yeah. This is you. Yeah. I'm not choosing anything here. I can't say, well, then I won't be involved. You involved me. Yeah. And then the other thing is the moment where she tries to, whether it was true or fake, she tries to kill herself in the pool. it speaks to how trapped she felt, that the only real way out was either by suicide or at least by putting on a show of a suicide.
Yeah.
And I think people read that different ways, but yeah, I mean, she's trapped. And I think that by the end of it, you do see her and Walt in the finale of Breaking Bad, and she's living in like this rundown little place with Walt and Holly and Junior and Holly. And and for Junior, like I always try to imagine that he probably ends up joining the DEA in some capacity. And maybe he owns that name. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he goes by Flynn professionally. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes by Walt Schrader. But
Flynn
like all
Schrader.
These things, what's that?
Flynn Schrader, just a complete clean break. But I think he probably, when he grows up, won't have much to do with his mother, and will only deal with Marie and Holly. And that's his only connection to the family. And like, these are sad things to think about, but I think it's true. And when Walt calls him when he's in hiding and says like, I'm going to send you money, whatever. And he's like, I don't want it. Like, and he screams and hangs up the phone. He saves Lewis.
He saves. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like all of these things. I think of anybody, Junior's the one that ends up doing the best. But that's just, I don't know. It seems to make the most sense to me, but yeah, I mean, all of these things are conjecture and whatever. With Better Call Saul, if we look at the ending of it, really the only two characters worth discussing or that you can discuss are Jim and Jimmy and Kim, because Howard's dead and Chuck is dead and Gus is dead and Mike is dead.
So bad for Howard.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I felt so horrible for him.
So Plan and Execution, that episode, I think, is the closest we get to Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Not because like everything's coming to fruition like it is in Ozymandias, but because it's like the most tense moment of television that can happen. But yeah, I agree. I hate what happened to him.
Yeah.
And then like Kim like twists the dagger in his wife, like, well, you probably would have noticed if he had a drug problem. Like all these things, like trying to gaslight her into thinking like, it's so like your husband committed suicide and I'm going to gaslight you so that you think it's true. And whatever. But it sucks. And Jimmy's silent during that because he sees what she's
like,
doing.
Shit.
So, but it's but the only two characters you can talk about are Jimmy and Kim. What do I think happens to Kim? I think in the future Kim will still have to answer for some things. And I don't know what that means for her, if it's jail time, if it's whatever, I don't know. But I think there are things that she has confessed to people that will inevitably come back to her. And Jimmy, he's behind bars. He'll stay behind bars. I think, the question is he truly done with Slippin' Jimmy? Or will he pull some shenanigans in there? I think he's done. I think to say anything different undermines the finale. And I think what you have is a character who lives out the rest of his life behind bars, and it's sad, but it's the most logical ending for a character that did what he did.
I almost wonder too, like if especially with as many of those inmates who recognized him, if he is somewhat forced to be Saul again, though. In prison, like, come on, Saul, like, do something funny, like, I know you can get me stuff. Like at some point, like, is there like a expectation for his behavior that he then has to fulfill to survive in there?
I think there may be, and we have this scene on the bus where the inmates recognize him from the commercials and start chanting "Better Call Saul," whatever. And so there is I do think there will be inmates who ask him to do things for them. Yeah. I don't know whether he does them. In my head, probably he won't. Yeah. Because again, it would negate the choice he makes at the end. Well, I feel like. And to
what end? Like, what does it serve? Like,
I'm in here forever.
I'm in here. Like, what are you gonna shiv me? Please go ahead.
Right, exactly. Yeah. The woman I love, I'll never see again after.
So you don't think she'll ever visit him or anything?
No, I think
it's probably best for her that she never contacts him again.
There's a shot. There's this beautiful wide shot that's like burned to my brain where she's leaving the jail. Yeah. She's leaving the prison and he's in the courtyard or whatever. Yep. And it's this really wide shot, and it's Jimmy and there's, bars, there's chain link fence all around him. Yeah. On the other side is Kim, and there's chain link fence around her, and she is headed out. Yep. He's standing still, and in between them is this giant, like it's snow, but it's like this giant white chasm. And to me, it just signified that these characters are both locked up, and there's this huge gap between them that I don't think they'll ever see each other again. Yeah. I think that last cigarette that they shared is the last interaction that either of them will have with the other. Yeah. And again, it sucks because in my mind, like, I don't know, whatever, maybe this shows my twisted loyalties. And in my mind, Jimmy and Kim are like my favorite TV couple ever. And I was rooting for them. Yeah. I was like, dang it. I want him to get away just so he can have a happily ever after with her. Yeah. But it would be the worst ending possible. But you only think you want it. Like, you don't actually want it. And because then the point is you just get away with stuff. And, right. And the truth is you don't, and you won't, and you shouldn't. And, and Jimmy learned his lesson, and it cost him everything. And Kim too. And it's just a fantastic show. Like, it's totally logical, and I don't know. I love it. I even love, there's that last scene with Gus, which I never hear anybody talk about this. The last scene with Gus is him in that restaurant, and the waiter and him, they're almost like it's like a flirtatious thing almost. And it's the closest confirmation we get to Gus being gay in any of the series. Sure. But I mean, it's pretty obvious. And, there's this moment, I think the waiter asks him to hang around or something, like there's an invitation of some sort. And Gus, is sitting there at the bar. He's got a drink. Yep. And you see, like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll move on. Yeah. And then like this, and then Gus comes out. You know what I mean? Like, like
his face gets like stone. Yeah.
Yeah. You see it come over him, and it's a beautiful performance too by Giancarlo. Yeah. And he becomes Gus, the Gus that slits Victor's neck. Right. The Gus that poisons Don Eladio, and the Gus that goes to kill Hector in the nursing home. Like, it's that Gus. And you see that come over him. He puts the drink down and walks out, and leaves the waiter hanging. Mm-hmm. And the implication, like this moment of, I have to do this. I have to see this thing through. And I just think that's a great performance. And the last thing we see of Mike in this show is also a great moment. Like, all these moments are sticking out of my mind. The last thing we see of Mike is him going to Nacho's father and saying, like, don't worry, there'll be justice for your son. And he says, that's not justice. Yeah. And then, and they're both separated by chain link fence, and you see Nacho's father leave, and Mike is like stuck in the chain link fence. Mm-hmm. He'll never escape this life. Yeah. Right. Like, this is the implication being like, the Mike, like, this is Mike. and he won't. And we know, because we've seen Breaking Bad, another point in the favor of watching it that way.
Yeah.
We know he doesn't escape that chain link fence.
No.
He will live there until he's killed by Walt.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. It's dude, these are perfect shows.
I know, they're so
love
good.
them. I love them, man. I also wanted to show you this because I was rewatching Breaking Bad. So there's this moment, and I've never noticed this. I've seen it, I don't know how many times. There's this moment after I think it's the first episode of season 4. It opens with the gunshot, Jesse to Gale.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see cameras clicking, and the police are there, and they're, cataloging, everything about Gale. And on Gale's mantle are these antique cameras, but also on the mantle, it's this skull that's half burned.
Oh, wow.
Clearly alluding to what will happen to Gus in a few episodes.
Whoa.
At the end of the season. And then that reminded me of another brilliant moment in Better Call Saul. If you remember, I think it's the first episode of season 6. It opens with the police clearing out Saul's mansion.
Yes.
And they take this life-size cutout of Saul Goodman and put him in the dumpster on the right-hand side of the dumpster.
Oh, it's
And where do they find Gene? Where do the police catch Gene?
That's right. They catch Gene in the dumpster.
Wow. And it's good Lord, dude, the attention to detail. And I know that the last season of Better Call Saul had the privilege, the weird blessing of COVID, which was they were able to write the entire series before they ever shot a scene.
Which you would think that a show should always just do that.
I think they should. but they did not have that luxury here. Right. In season 4, when we see the burned face of Gus in Gale's apartment in the first episode, or we've talked about this before. Season is it 2? I think of Breaking Bad. That's all of the flash forwards to the airplane crash.
Yes.
Right. It builds toward that. And it's see, that's the level of storytelling that to me, no other television drama has been able to achieve. And there have been other good television dramas. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, in my mind, I can rewatch these so many times, always catch something new. Every single bit of every frame is purposeful. And if this, if it were me and I were teaching a college course on the language of cinema, all I'd do is show these shows and be take notes on everything you see here.
Yeah.
From colors the characters are wearing to how we're designing our compositions. Like I just talked about, the chasm in between Jimmy and Kim at the end. This is all storytelling, because you could clearly have, Kim say to Jimmy, well, I don't think we'll ever see you again. But why do that when you could show it?
Yeah.
And that's so much more impactful to me. And that's what makes these shows brilliant to me.
So this episode is getting released on September 29th.
Yes.
So 10 years ago today happens to be the air date of the series finale of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Which is really cool. And just
it's very cool.
Yeah. When we were talking about, what podcast episodes we were doing, it just so happened that we were ready to talk about the show and that this was coming up. And I was like, oh wow, that's so awesome. Timing was really serendipitous there.
Yeah.
I really enjoy all of these things. All of this is on Netflix. Again, if you've listened this far, you've watched it all. So you've
for now, I do think it's leaving. I think I heard that it's leaving.
It will. I own, so I know you have all these things because you've got the Blu-rays and you bought the episodes for Better Call Saul. Yep. So I have the first 4 seasons of Breaking Bad on Blu-ray. And then I have the 5th season on iTunes because I didn't have cable and the show was airing its final season. So I did buy the episodes.
Yeah.
I did what you did, so I have those digitally.
Yep.
but the more stuff happens, the more it's like, I just want to have stuff on physical. So
yeah,
at some point, I'm sure I will get around to getting these things. And I don't buy it very many. I bought Guardians of the Galaxy the other day.
Sweet.
All right. Cue our discussion a couple weeks ago about the bookshelf fiasco and all that stuff.
Yep. I would love to see all of these things, Breaking Bad, El Camino, Better Call Saul, released in a giant box set of like 4K discs.
Yep.
I don't think it'll ever happen. And that sucks. Like, I don't know that we'll ever get a 4K release. Although
Sony
I know
could make
one
a killing
exists.
off of that.
It exists because Netflix has these shows in 4K.
Yes.
So the transfer exists, and Breaking Bad was shot on film. So it's very easy to get the 4K master. But I don't know that we'll ever get it, which sucks. Yeah. But I would buy it, barring the enormous price tag it would inevitably have. But I think, again, maybe I'm just a twisted individual, who knows, but I think this is my Gunsmoke. And what I mean by that is, every grandpa just watches Gunsmoke like all the time. I think I'm going to be 87 and I'm going to be watching this, and my son's going to come over to my house and be like, "You're watching it again?" Yeah. And be like, yes.
It's the greatest show ever.
my every other year binge of this. Thank you. But
I'm looking at, you can apparently get, El Camino. El Camino does have a DVD Blu-ray like it.
Yes.
So you can get it. And that's something that a lot of people probably don't realize. Like, you can buy Stranger Things on DVD. Yes. Like, they do make them. You don't have to have Netflix to watch these things.
I have the cool Stranger Things VHS.
Whoa. Yeah.
It's actually a DVD.
Right.
I mean, it's a Blu-ray, but yeah, man, it's dope.
Wow.
This is like one of the coolest things.
It's almost like they gave a shit.
Yeah. Which is rare. That's why I bought it. I'm like, I forget who it was. Somebody said, that's not really going to be worth anything. And I'm like, I don't care. It's super cool, dude.
Worth anything.
This is a VHS.
It's for me, motherfucker.
Right.
Worth something.
And Stranger Things 2, they have not released Stranger Things 3, but Stranger Things 2 is also VHS styled, but it's clamshell.
Okay.
And it's dope.
Wow.
And
That's
El
awesome.
Camino is a steelbook, which is great.
Is it? Well, I'm trying to find.
Hold on.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Hold up.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. Let's see if it's the same one I'm looking at on Amazon.
So it's this.
Yep. That's what I'm seeing.
And the back just says El Camino. There's nothing on the spine, which is
cool.
weird.
Wow.
But yeah. Yeah, and it's just red on the inside.
Yeah. Man. I got to get these things. My issue is always like, okay, how do I make sure I'm not buying like some weird shitty like region free version?
Yeah.
Like sometimes on Amazon, like when I was looking for Guardians 3, it like didn't have like a definitive thing. And so I finally just went on Marvel's website and I was like, hey, I want to buy the Blu-ray. And it was like, here's links to Target and Walmart and Best Buy. And I was like, I'll just buy it from Target. Like, fuck this. Fine. Like, I'm not going to get it from Amazon,
Yeah, right.
And so I imagine I don't even know what the website is for, what would it be? AMC?
Yeah. For which? For
television shows? Like for Breaking Bad?
Either that or Sony Pictures, maybe.
Currently, it looks like the complete series Blu-ray is like the cover is like that little sketch drawing of Heisenberg.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also one that exists here that's Breaking Bad and El Camino as like a duo set. Yeah, it's got a cool split frame picture of Walt and Jesse on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it looks really fucking badass, actually.
That's cool.
Anyway, all I need to do is buy the 5th season on disc. I really need to because I got most of this. But yeah, the final season. There it is. So the same thing. I have Mad Men. I have all the Mad Men on Blu-ray except for the final season for some reason. And so I really just need to complete those sets on physical, but I'm just not in a rush. But anyway, like eventually, like I have a place to put this and I want to be able to have a place for my favorite things. And, I think all of this would make the list. It's just one of those things where if you are going to watch, it's like, like if you're going to do a casual rewatch, this is going to be like a few months of your time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
But to be enjoyed. That's just going back to what I said about the minutia and the small moments in the show. that's one of those things you can just sit and enjoy. Like, even if you know the plot of the episode, just enjoying sound design does wonders for a rewatch experience of something that you're just sitting and enjoying.
I'm getting so much this time from looking at the actors' performances.
Yeah.
Which, is obviously like what everybody talks about, right? Like that's the reason that, Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston won so many Emmys for this thing. But if you watch, like, everybody's knocking it out of the park, dude. It's so good. And that's why Better Call Saul needs to win these Emmys. It deserves them. And the work that Bob Odenkirk alone put into taking a character that was a side character, goofball, comic relief, and turning him into a tragic hero is, second to none. This is a different character.
Yeah.
This is not the character he played before. And I think probably as an actor, you don't often get to do that. Play the same character, but completely different, totally different.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's just
I love
good.
it so much. I enjoyed it so much. I just think it's great.
Yeah.
Completely.
I do think this is a weird thing to say, but I think this is my favorite IP.
That's a bold statement, but it's really great.
Yeah. It's a bold statement because that it's a broad statement, right? Because you're comparing this to 85 years of Superman media and 85 years of Batman media. But like this is a win every time it has come around. And I hope it never comes around again, except for the Skinny Pete and Badger Christmas special. And I think that everything is I don't know, man. It's just great. Like, Hollywood never lets anything die. And I'm sure somebody somewhere has had conversations with Vince about, well, what if, who could you do another movie about, man? But I really hope the answer is nobody. I'm busy. I'm doing other things. Mm-hmm. And to that end, I will plug this. Vince has a new show that he's working on. And I heard him saying, or somebody in an interview said that Vince was working on the show. He's having a hard time trying to figure out like to break it. Right. He's like, I have this idea. I'm trying to figure it out. And he's writing the pilot and it's not working. And he's like, it's missing something. And while he was directing his final episodes of Better Call Saul, he realized that the thing he was missing was Ray Seahorn. So he retailored it, written to her, and said, Ray, do you want to be in it? And she said yes. And so whatever his next project it's a Ray Seahorn lead.
Wow.
And we don't know anything about it. But she said she's super excited about it, and he's excited about it. And whatever it is, I'll be there to enjoy it.
Yeah, she's stunning in this show.
It is the great performance from the show.
It looks like you can definitely buy the complete series of Better Call Saul on Blu-ray right now.
Yes.
I'm having trouble finding the Mad Men final season. It looks like the Blu-ray is currently unavailable. You can only get like a $40 like multi-format thing, which is kind of weird. But when you look at Better Call Saul complete series, here it is for $120. Bam, right there. It's
when
good too.
I think it was like right after season 5 had dropped, and like live, it dropped live, and I watched it, loved it, and was like, okay, I had bought the first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul, and it was like, so let me buy 3 and 4. And I looked it up, and 3 was out of print and 4 had not come out yet. And I was like, oh, are they giving up on physical media for this?
Yeah.
I think they might be. So I logged onto eBay and bought the 3rd season because it's the only place I could get it at that time. And then 4 dropped like a few months later, and I immediately bought it from Amazon. Like, if they give up on, at least I'll have it this far. And they did release 5 and 6 on Blu-ray, so I bought those too. But
Man, it's good stuff. I'm very pleased with all this, and there's quality here, and it matters because like we talk so much about what we don't like or what's missing, and it's like because we're measuring against stuff like this where people gave a shit and there's attention to detail and it really pays off and matters. So
yeah, and I'm sure, like I've said this before, I'm sure people on this podcast are tired of me because everything that we review, I'm like, well, it's no Breaking Bad, but it's okay. Right. And I'm like, comparing everything, like it could literally be, just some weird, goofy comedy. And I'm like, well, but on Breaking Bad, the plot develops, and I'm sure people are mad, but I'm like, it's just good. I don't know. One of my cousins watched it, and Breaking Bad, and we were talking about it. It was right after the finale had ended. And he said, so I guess right about 10 years ago. And I remember what he said. He said, I think I had a religious experience watching that show. And I was like, the fact that it can give that feeling to somebody, like, obviously it's hyperbole, but it's also, you don't say it if there's not a nugget of truth in it.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's in a class of its own, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. Well, cheers to the team on the shows. Please don't make any more. And these were amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. You did something great. And let it lie.
We see you.
And I know that you intend to.
Yeah.
Let it lie.
Just in case you're thinking about it, don't.
In 10 years, when they offer that big check, and they will.
Yep.
Please don't do it.
Don't.
Please don't do it.
Don't.
Remember every legacy sequel ever made.
Justice matters most. And justice here is walking away.
Yes.
Do what none of these characters could do and walk away.
Yes. But a 30-minute Christmas special would be much appreciated. Thank you. I don't even know what that would look like. Like if you handed it to me and said, go, half-hour Christmas special. I have no idea what I would do. I don't even want to do it, but I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, that would be hilarious. Let's do it.
It's a funny idea. I don't know how great it would be in execution, but it certainly is something everyone would respond to. It
seems more like a YouTube video or like something they release on a box set, or a like Funny or Die, but it's, I
feel like those two actors should host the Emmys one year, and then that's like their opening skit is a Badger and Skinny Pete Christmas special.
The opening skit should just be Badger and Skinny Pete watching the Emmys.
Yeah.
And then they get so high they think they're there.
Yeah, exactly.
And they come out on stage.
Yeah.